We now move over to Europe next, where Donald Trump confirmed that he had spoken again with Russian leader Vladimir Putin since last week's talks at the White House with Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelenskyy and European leaders. Trump called every conversation good until a bomb drops on Kyiv, but insisted a deal to end the war is near. He warned of very big consequences if Putin and Zelenskyy don't meet soon, adding he may intervene strongly within weeks. Let's listen in to what the US president had to say.
You've spoken to Putin since last Monday.
Yeah, I have.
What is your conversation? Or can you share?
Every conversation I have with him is a good conversation, and then unfortunately a bomb is loaded up into Kiev or someplace, and then I get very angry about it. I think we're going to get the war done. It's tough. I thought that would be, of the 7 that I settled, I thought that would be the easiest of the group. See, you never know what's going to happen. You know, war, strange things happen in war. The fact that he went to Alaska, our country, I think was a big statement that he wants to get it done. That was not easy for him to go to Alaska, you know, for him to come here. Well, that's going to be up to them. It takes 2 to tango, I always say it. And they should meet, I think, before I have a meeting and probably close the deal. But I think it's appropriate they meet. They do not exactly get along well, as you can understand. And I'm sure it's a meeting that perhaps he didn't like, but he wasn't happy about coming to the United States either. That was a big concession, and I appreciate the fact that he did. You know, I've always had a very good relationship, despite a fake Russia haunt that we had. But we've always had a great relationship, very good relationship, strong relationship with Russia. That's a good thing, not a bad thing, by the way. I thought this would be, in many ways, the easiest way. I have a very good relationship with Putin. I thought it would be the easiest one to stop, and it's really not. It's very complex. It's very personal from their standpoint. There's tremendous dislike personally between the two men, and we're going to have to straighten that out. But I would like to see them meet first. They'd like me to be there. I may be there. I may not. I'll see. But I wanted them to work out their differences first, because it is ultimately between them. And when that happens, I think we'll get it in.
Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio held follow-up calls with European counterparts, who pledged to push for a negotiated settlement. Italy's Antonio Tajani called for NATO-style guarantees for Ukraine and offered Deming support, while Germany's Lars Kleinbell emphasized Berlin's commitment but stressed that talks must start with a ceasefire and be led by Kyiv. Polish President Karol Nawrocki blocked wider child benefits for Ukrainian refugees, saying only those working in Poland should qualify. Let's listen in to what the Polish President Karol Nawrocki has said.
Swojego zdania nie zmieniam i zamierzam wykonywać swoje zobowiązania i uznaję, że 800+ powinno przynależeć tylko tym Ukraińcom, którzy podejmują się wysiłku pracy w Polsce. Podobnie z ochroną zdrowia, to stawia nas w sytuacji, w której obywatele państwa polskiego we własnym państwie, w Polsce, są traktowani gorzej niż nasi goście z Ukrainy.
We're now joined by Professor Veselin Popovsky. He is a professor and vice dean at Jindal Global Law School, and he joins us live from New Delhi. Professor Popovsky, pleasure as always. President Trump says a deal to end the war is near and has hinted he may intervene strongly within weeks. What do you think that means, and how do you think a possible meeting with Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelenskyy is shaping up to be?
Well, it's very difficult to say what Donald Trump means. I think he doesn't know what he means. He talks always the same, and it's a deja vu, and no action follows. He put many ultimatums, and those ultimatums expires, and he put new ultimatums, and basically he say, if something doesn't happen tomorrow, I will give another 2 weeks, and when the 2 weeks expire, he give another 2 weeks. So it's an impossible question to answer, Thomas, but generally, At some point, the expectation is that Donald Trump will realize that without putting very strong sanctions on Putin, on Russia, it will not work. By pleasing Russians, by trying to be nice to them, he achieved nothing for the last 7.5 months already. So it's high time for him to realize. In some of the speeches, he realizes that. He mentions that until the next bomb falls on Kiev or elsewhere, everything falls apart. So for that bomb not to fall to Kiev, he needs to do what every other country in the world, Europeans, Australians, and Japanese, South Koreans, Canadians doing, NATO, the European Union, to put strong sanctions on Russia and to offer full support, including military, to Ukraine. And he can play that. He can say Joe Biden didn't do enough. He did very little for Ukraine. And he didn't stop Vladimir Putin, and I'm going to impose harsh sanctions on Putin, which John Biden didn't do that. So he has the way to play this to his domestic audience as well. So again, until he does this, it doesn't matter what he says, it matters what he does. And when Donald Trump starts doing what is necessary to be done, sanctions on Russia, cut the negotiations, no more need to talk to aggressors and war criminals like everybody in that government in Moscow, and start full support for Ukraine. Offer, and again, they were mentioning the assistance to NATO security guarantees, including with Air Force, United States Air Force. That sounds quite promising. If US does this, if they offer air support, if they offer more munitions and weapons, if they offer more intelligence, they might be also at some point progress also in the negotiation. 30-day ceasefire, again, a very good idea. A long time ago, Donald Trump proposed that back in February. He shouldn't drop that. He should tell Putin, if you don't stop the fire, I'm not talking about anything else with you.
But Professor Popovsky, I'm very wary of time here. However, we've seen a huge diplomatic push here from the United States within the past couple of weeks with that big meeting in Alaska, and then of course that Zelenskyy, along with the European counterparts, meet in Washington. Now everything is starting to simmer down. Can you have a look at that big push and tell me if anything has come out of it?
Yes, there is a push, Thomas, but it was the wrong method, not the right. It is the correct approach, but the wrong method. Again, without sanctions on Russia, without strong pressure on Russia, any talk will be meaningless, like those last week were, again. It's important to talk, but it's also important to act. And with basically not delivering the promises, Donald Trump put an ultimatum 2 weeks and said, if Russia doesn't negotiate, I will impose severe sanctions. And when that deadline came on 8th of August, instead of putting sanctions, he agreed to invite Putin to Alaska. And that's the wrong thing to do, obviously, because that makes Putin even more arrogant, even more aggressive, and he will never, ever stop fire if Putin behaves like that. That's something Donald Trump does not realize. He needs to put Putin in the corner. In the next phone call, he should tell him simply,
yes,
call your general, stop the fire, otherwise I stop talking to you and I impose severe sanctions on you. That's the language Putin will understand.
Yes, Professor Veselin Popovsky, thank you.